Hi everyone, welcome to the next meeting of the Electronic Trading Club. This session will be a bit more practical rather than theory or research, as we're focusing on software and data, some critical stuff for any robot trader. So here's the overview. We quickly go into some common issues with our setup, then I go through where to find historic data for different instruments. I then work through a tutorial on how to upload this data into both amibroker as well as metatrader. And finally, I discuss some base templates for amibroker and an MQL algorithm. Right, so let's get into it. Starting with some common issues. In order for every trader to run their algo, they need a computer that needs power, internet connection, and reliable software. To get into some experiences with power and internet connections, there are several ways to get around these. Firstly, with power, you can trade with a laptop. It has a battery which even gives you time to run to the nearest Wimpy or McDonald's to plug it in there. Laptop pricing has been a lot more competitive compared to desktops over the past couple of years, and it's possible to get quite a decent laptop that can perform well for a good price. A UPS is another obvious solution that will help with power. Internet connection is very tricky. You don't want to pay for 3 connections just for those couple of hours a year that one of them doesn't work. So one trick is to diversify with connections, that you have ADSL, one fixed line and one wireless, so an ADSL and a mobile connection, even if that means hooking up your cell phone to your computer. As mentioned, these are the more obvious solutions. But here are 2 less obvious solutions you may not have thought of, as they are only available more recently. The first is a tablet. Tablets that run Windows have the ability to run most of the trading programs these days. They are capable of an independent 3D connection, they have their own battery power, and chances are you're using it for personal reasons already. Some concerns with the tablet is that loading Windows programs on an Android operating system or Apple is very tricky. That's why I'm pointing out it needs to more likely be a Windows operating system. In the next slide, there's another solution that actually helps on solving both these problems, and I'll get into them just now. Finally, some on software reliability. Whether it's your broker or the software itself, it has to be reliable. Data loss, repainting issues, these issues are very real. And issues like these are difficult to deal with as it's outside of your control. The only real solution, I find, is that you will need to either move to a different software platform or to a different broker, depending on where the problem lies. Another solution I wanted to point out is the VPS, which stands for Virtual Private Server, which basically means that you hire a computer somewhere else in the world. So whoever you hire this from has the responsibility to ensure constant power and an internet connection, but which you pay for, of course. Amazon in the US has this service. They have a batch of computers running, and you have the ability to log in at any point in time from anywhere in the world to see that it's all still running. The costs on these are low. I believe at the moment Amazon has some special where it's free for a year. These are all different possible solutions depending on your own circumstances and help to bypass some of the issues. Then going into some detail on software that's available out there, there's obviously quite a lot of software out there. From what I've seen, it's also become quite a trend in the industry to offer web-based software as well. Here's a list of software that I've come across that seems to be quite widely known. I just want to point out that some of them, like Thinkorswim, NinjaTrader, these are all American based. So if you do want to use them, you need to go through the process of opening an account with an offshore equity trader. Personally, I've got experience with amibroker, Terminal Velocity, MetaTrader, and Swordfish, and more recently ProTrader as well. From what I've seen with meta stocks, it's very similar to amibroker. It's just more expensive. I couldn't really find that it was worth the higher price, so I opted for amibroker instead, and quite honestly haven't regretted it. amibroker has a lot of support from both the public and the company itself. As far as running the algos, MetaTrader is a very widely used program. I like it because of the wide support, and generally it's very easy to use. I believe MetaTrader 5 is out already, which has some basic assistance in making your own algo. Personally, I'm hesitant on making algos through these kinds of wizards, because when you code something from scratch you understand it better, whereas pre-programmed items are never as simple as they seem, and you don't always know how it deals with the grey areas in the programming. Deciphering the code in the end is sometimes also quite tricky, as it tends to add a lot of unnecessary code, but not going with the wizard isn't an option for everybody necessarily. I'm just going to pause it here for a second to give the club members a chance to discuss issues that they've maybe encountered. This should only take a second, guys. My second is up, and now on to data. Data is really tricky. There's two major issues with it. One is that people often charge for historic data, which is not an issue by itself, but it can become very expensive. And two is that data on foreign instruments like forex and commodities don't really have a standard from my understanding. It's broker specific. Even though brokers follow one another closely, it's more of a 95% match than 100% to what really happened. To help with the first issue, here are some websites that provide free data. It seems to be very widely used amongst overseas traders. Stook provides end-of-day data only, but it's free. However, the data goes back to early 1900s on some instruments. To me, it was fascinating to watch what happened to the stock markets during times like World War II was announced, or the US going off the gold standard. Stook is partly in Polish, so navigating it is tricky, but it's not that bad. If you do download it from these websites, please note that the data has not been formatted for your software and might need a bit of formatting in Excel to fit that software. I've obviously had to go through the exercise myself, so I thought I'd just point out that on my site www.myshares.co.za you can find data that has already been formatted. There's data on forex, equity indexes and commodities as well. The sources were Tick Data and Stook as mentioned. Next up is a quick show on how to load that data into either amibroker or MetaTrader. The next bit is the practical side of the presentation. I'm going to show you how to upload this. I'm going to skip these slides as I'm going to show you directly, but those who want to look at the presentation can download it later. Okay, so for this tutorial on how to upload to MetaTrader. For this tutorial, I've just quickly opened up my data and MetaTrader as well. So I'm assuming that you guys have that ready and that's open. So starting with MetaTrader, make sure that you've got the data ready, that you've done this, you've opened MetaTrader, then go into MetaTrader. And you can either press F2 or you can go to Tools, History Center. Then next, choose the instrument that you're going to upload to. In this case, I use the example of the pound dollar. Firstly, just double click on this on the bar that you're going to import to, so either the 1 minute, the 5 minute. Make sure that that's now green and gold, so it's been downloaded. And next you want to go to import. You click on browse, you find the file. So I've gone to my desktop, I found the file, and I make sure that it says skip columns 1. And the reason that I do that is because over here I've got the file open and the first column is just the name. So I'm just telling it to skip the name and then start over here from the date up until the end. So let me just close this so there's no issues. So once I've selected that, I say it's fine. It's comma because it's a comma selected file, and so I say OK. You give it a few seconds and then the data should be uploaded, which you can see over here as it suddenly jumps from May to the new data that I just inserted. Like I said, in the slides you can see some screenshots on it all, and you can go through it later again if you do get stuck. What I've just quickly done is I've opened up the next files for amibroker. I've opened up the data sheet again, and I've opened up my amibroker. This is what your data should look like and how it should be formatted. This is what it is formatted on the website. So now with amibroker, once we open up amibroker, okay, you're going to select the data file through the import wizard. Okay, what I want to do is just close the data file first, make sure that it's closed. Next we go to File, Import Wizard. Okay, so what we do, same process, we click on Browse, pick files, there's ALZ, and I click on Next. Okay, here comes the trick. What you want to do is you want to click on More Columns, because what's missing over here is time. So yes, we've got, here's a sample from the file, we've got the ticker, the date, but we've got nothing for time. So what I do is I just move everyone one down. So volume goes there, and then the close moves to this one, the low moves to the next one, the high moves there. It's just shifting all of them one up, and then finally in column 3 we add time, as this is how the data has been formatted. Click on Next, click on Finish, and your amibroker will now be updated. I realized that I went through that quite fast. I'm just trying to keep the videos short, but you can always go through that again either by watching the video again or by downloading the PowerPoint presentation and just following the screenshots. I'm just going to skip the next couple of slides as it's exactly what we already just did. So let's just get into the final practical bit, the templates. I'm not going to get into too much detail on these, but basically what I've done is I've attached two templates. One is for testing, either in MetaTrader or in the other in amibroker. Both templates do the same thing. They use a moving average crossover system. No profits, take profits, no stop losses. It's a stop and reverse system. The idea is that it's just a very basic template that you can learn from and build up from there. I won't go into too much detail, but in these, what I've done is I've attached two templates for testing. Either the one is the MQL and the other one's the amibroker. So this is obviously the amibroker template. Both templates do the same thing. It's a moving average crossover system with no profits, no stop losses, and it just stops and reverses. The idea is just to show a very basic template, learn from that, and build up from there. On this slide, you can see the amibroker template for backtesting. It might be a bit small, but you can download it with the commentary as well. To point out one or two things, firstly, the set trade delays is set to 1. This basically means that the signal has confirmed and then it goes into the trade in the next bar. A logical error that some system traders make is that it will enter on the price when the signal occurred, but you don't know it's confirmed until the bar is closed. So they enter at a price technically before it's happened, and 9 times out of 10 your results will practically double. However, these results are not real. The contracts over here, you can see number of contracts. I tend to keep to 1. So it just standardizes a test, so I can compare apples with apples. Point value is also 1, so I just see 1 point. You would probably change your gearing there. So if your gearing is 1 to 100, you would make point value 100. And finally over here where it says buy is equal to, that's the condition on, that's the line that says on this condition you need to go long. So you would enter your longs where it says buy, and then you would close at longs where it says sell. You don't close a long by entering a short position, okay, and you don't close a short position by going into a long position. You would use the cover over here. And then finally you've got the XREM, and the XREM is just so that you don't enter into multiple positions on the system. You just enter one position at a time. So I'm either long or short. Right, I've included the exact same template for MQL coding, which is either Terminal Velocity, ProTrader, or MetaTrader. The code is attached to the PowerPoint presentation on the next slide. Over here you can get it from there. It's also a core version of the MA crossover system. It's just to make things as simple as possible and to build on that, so that's why I show these templates. The code is a bit longer than amibroker, so I couldn't fit it on the slide. But what I do want to say is, just remember, before running off and just running any file live, I just want to point out the story of Nike Capital that lost $440 million in 30 minutes due to a logical error in the code that they missed. Understand that these robots are not perfect. Software is not perfect. Run your systems on a demo account first. See how they work. Make sure you understand what's going on inside of them best you can, and finally make sure you've got code for margin size restrictions when running it. So here I've got the rules listed, and then if you download the file and you double click over here, you'll be able to see the whole algorithm. What I'd like to do is I just want to end with a thought for the day. The question I want you to ask yourself is, what does success mean to me? Is it making 100,000 Rand, 10 million Rand, keep making calls on the market, or getting followers on Twitter? The question you need to ask yourself, what you must realize though, is that if you look at where you are right now and where you believe success is, the difference between that brings anxiety. In other words, if your account is worth 100,000 Rand and you believe success is reaching 100 million Rand, then you will have lots of anxiety when your system goes through a drawdown patch. Alternatively, if success means just making 20,000 Rand on that same account for the year, your anxiety will be a lot less. When your goals are unrealistic and you go through a drawdown period, anxiety levels shoot up. So really think about success and what it means to you, and realistically what it is that you want to achieve. That's the whole presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.